O fellow members of the Roman Senate, hear me. Shall we continue to build palace after palace for the rich? Or shall we aspire to a more noble purpose and build decent housing for the poor? How does the Senate vote? Fuck the poor!
Good.
It's extras and epilogues. Open the theater. Lights, cameras, action. Movies and reviews, things you might not have known. What happens when the credits roll? Let's get on with the show.
Mel Brooks brings his one-of-a-kind comic touch to the history of mankind, covering events from the Old Testament to the French Revolution. In History of the World, Part 1, which is our film tonight on Extras and Epilogues. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. The theater is open once again. My name is Shannon Young. I'm going to be your host. This is Podzilla 1985, and we are continuing Mel Brooks May with a film that he made, and it is History of the World, Part 1. Full disclosure, I've never seen this film. In fact, as I looked through Mel Brooks' history, I realized I haven't seen many of Mel Brooks' films. I've never seen Young Frankenstein.
Me either. And I lobbied hard for it to be in this month.
Hold the fuck up. If I had known that was the case, that would have been in the month.
I know I told you for sure.
I know Hunter had said it. Shannon, you never told me this.
I assumed I had, but I was wrong. Once I looked into my own history, I realized the folly of my ways.
I said it when we started this up. The only way that I could have done this month where I had seen all 4 movies had been if this one had been replaced with Dracula Dead and Loving It. That's it. Because the only of his movies that I have seen are the 3 we're doing this month and that one outside of History of the World.
I found a couple of really good parallels between this film and some of Mel Brooks' other films, and I want to talk about those tonight. Here to talk to me about those is the co-host of the show. It's Double H.
I wasn't ready to go, Tanner.
Big Shirtless Tan.
That's good to be king.
That's the right one. That's the correct one.
It's fucking hot, man.
And I did laugh at the "it's good to be the king" part, for the record. So, Double H, you got one now?
Oh, hey, motherfucker! I should have just done that. I should have just done that one.
That one caught me by surprise. Hey, motherfucker! They just. I'll say this now. Well, no, we got to get to the cast first on it really quick. I'd never seen this film.
A while.
Well, no, because we're only going to do a couple. Thank God. One thing I noticed about this film, I want to say this now before I'm too spirited eventually, and I forget. Because I get very spirited during these shows lately, and I'll tell you why. It's because I am in an unending pain that has come to me after my surgery. Now, I don't know if this is bad or not. I talked to the doctor today, and she said, you need to talk to your surgeon. We need to get you a CAT scan because there could have been complications from your surgery. And I said, you bitch. That's exactly what I was afraid of. So that's the next step on that. So I've been taking spirit juices, spirit gummies, spirit weed spirit,
boosters.
Weed gummies.
Spirit weed.
I gave it away. And so at some point in this episode, I will become incoherent and I will probably try to flip my desk. Now, Hunter was
Which is why we nailed it down.
He nailed it down for me, and I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Hunter
we went ahead and
came
nailed
over,
it.
and that's why Tanner's
he will
shirtless.
forget.
Yeah, he's shirtless because it was so hot as he was hammering the nails.
Yes.
Like Big John Stud or whatever the Black Railroad guy's name was. Johnny Stud.
Big John Stud was Kevin Nash.
I don't want anyone to go talk to a supervisor about this, so let's just move on. So the thing that I want to say before I forget, which I've already almost completely glossed over, was the ending song, the Jews in Outer Space. Did you notice that's just the Men in Tights song?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
He reuses a lot of his
trivia.
music.
Yeah.
I could have sworn I put that in the trivia. Yeah, I know. It's exactly what it is. No, I didn't. It's not in there.
Because we were watching it, and I was like,
No.
well, that's just, in my head, I'm going, that's Men in Tights. So,
Yeah.
Yes.
all right. Well, here I
Well,
thought.
also the music you hear through a lot of it, like when the Romans come marching in. Yes,
I knew it.
That's the
Spaceballs.
same music they use on the kazoos from Robin Hood Men in Tights whenever the sheriff comes riding in.
That's where I heard it. Couldn't have been Spaceballs because I don't remember much about Spaceballs. Okay, well, I thought I brought some really good trivia there, but turns out everyone knew. So fuck me. Let's talk about history of the world.
King of Mel Brooks here.
That's true. You are. Well, it's good to be the king too.
It's good to be the king.
Except maybe not tonight. Let's see what happens. Release.
It's okay.
It is. Look, everyone's gone through this, all right? I went through this with Phantom of the Opera. I went through this with Gremlins. I went through this with Ghostbusters 2016.
More than everybody else, and that's fine.
I don't know. You and I were tying here. And I'm waiting for the day Hunter loves a film
that
I hate.
I'm right here the whole time.
You know, honestly, the movie that Hunter loves the most that I've probably been most disappointed in was Aladdin. As weird as that sounds, because it's such a good movie.
Which is bizarre to me.
Yeah. How weird is that?
That's
strange. Anyway, all right, let's talk about Melon Tights. Release.
Melon Tights. It's all one word, Melon Tights.
What I was going to say earlier was when they keep saying everyone goes through it. By it, they mean me. That's what it is. It's always me for some reason.
We call it the Hunter effect. You know? My stomach hurts.
We don't.
Released
First time you said that.
June 12th, 1981, a year before I was born. Must be why I missed it. Written and directed by the great Mel Brooks and starring Mel Brooks, along with, and I was going to say this earlier and I'm going to say it now in case, again, I forget, Gregory Hines, who is, to me, the highlight of this film. So talented, and Gregory Hines never gets the respect he deserves as an actor. One of my low-key favorite actors. He's always good in everything, especially in the classic Western, The Cherokee Kid, where he played The Undertaker. Put that together. And he's good in this film, too, even though it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it doesn't have to. Dom DeLuise, another fantastic actor. Madeline Kahn, who's always great in everything she's in. She's a treat.
Everything.
And then that's where we cut it off, but just off the top of my head, Harvey Korman is in the film. I especially want to mention him because I'm a huge Harvey Korman fan. John Hurt.
B. Arthur.
B. Arthur? Yes. I turned to Lindsay and said, is that B. Arthur? And that's...
bullshit artist.
To me, that might have been the funniest part of the film. I don't know about everybody else.
What?
When she asked him, did you kill anybody last week? No. Did you try to kill somebody last week? Yes. All right, here you go. But
if you don't kill anybody next week, we're going to have to
And that's what frustrates me about this movie, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. It has a runtime of 92 minutes. It's not super long. Unfortunately, I did have to split this movie in half because I met Asa Gray at the store and we filmed a promo for the May 24th Pirate Strong wrestling show that we're putting on. So I had to come back and finish it. It was in like the middle of Rome. And budget versus box office, $10 million versus $31 million. Not a particular hit. It didn't lose money, but it wasn't a big hit. It also didn't go well with critics.
That also depends on what the marketing was, because again, none of that ever includes your marketing. Usually, your marketing is at least half your budget. That's not to say that was necessarily the case here. I don't know. So yeah, it didn't make a bunch of money. Let's put it that way.
I would assume that it wasn't that much because I'd never heard of this film. Critical reception.
I hadn't either until I was forced to watch it.
We judge it on.
61% critical rating on Rotten Tomatoes. This is Dalton's favorite, though, right? Am I correct in that? This is Dalton's favorite Mel Brooks film.
I have no idea.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, we talked about this the other day. Anyway. Yeah, 6.1 out of 10.
You know, I think we have talked about that. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of peeing. 47 out of 100 on Metacritic, which is mixed or average. No cinema score, but 2 out of 4 stars from Roger Ebert, who said a rambling, undisciplined, sometimes embarrassing failure. I don't know if I go that far, from one of the most gifted comic filmmakers around. Brooks never seems to have a clear idea of the rationale of his film, so there's no confident narrative, impetus. I've never seen that
Basically,
word.
there's nothing that forces it to keep going.
To carry it along. This is why I'm not a professional paid critic, because sometimes words get caught up in my throat. I don't say them no good.
You don't say them so good.
But Gene Siskel did give it 3 out of 4 stars, who said it still contains a bunch of solid laughs. And let's talk about the film. It did contain sporadic, random laughs when it came to me. I've never seen this film before. I really didn't know what to expect. I'd never seen anything from this film at all. I know some people said, "Oh, I've seen the Spanish Inquisition part. I've seen this part. I've seen that part." I'd never seen anything.
Look,
at all.
I can quote that movie. This movie for me is as quotable as Blazing Saddles, but that's just because it's me. And again, it's not a constant hit. It's not constant laughs. It little pinpoint stuff that hits. But this, like the Inquisition, I could sit here and sing that song, and it's hilarious.
Okay, so
a lot of people think it's the boring part of the movie, but
here's a controversial take from me. I did not find the Inquisition song funny in any way, but I also did not find it like unentertaining. And that's the problem with this film. I'll say it outright, is that there were a lot of parts of this film that I thought were well done, and I get where they were going, and they were entertaining, but they didn't make me laugh. And you can't really have a comedy without the laughs. Otherwise, what kind of a film is it? I think Blazing Saddles, to me, is still the funniest movie of all time. And there's a million parts of that film I could point out as, oh, this is objectively hilarious. I don't think I could point to many in this film and say the same thing. There are a couple. I did really enjoy the B. Arthur part. It's Good to Be the King was funny-ish. I did not expect this movie to be so horny. There's so much horn. Like, I don't know what Mel Brooks was going through at this point in his life. Because it's not like they didn't have sexual humor in the other films. You know, in Blazing Saddles, Battle and Khan, again. But it was just one character, and it was like one joke. This film, especially once you get to the French Revolution, I told Lindsay, I'm like, man, they can't afford anything, but they can afford, push-up bras. Because every woman is just cleavage street. You've got Playboy models playing the Vestal Virgins. Again, I don't know what Mel Brooks was going through personally when this film came out, but whatever issues he was facing was clearly up on the screen, because now you have a guy who is, I think at this point in time, was in his 50s. Even then, he was in his 50s, and he's making out with, 20-year-olds with cleavage bearing, and it's supposed to be funny, but it's not. So then it just kind of seems sad sometimes. Because Mel Brooks is such a brilliant comedian. But Hunter and I talked about this before the show, and Hunter, I want to throw this over to you. I think one of the biggest problems I have with this film is that Mel Brooks shouldn't have been such a big part of the cast.
No, Mel Brooks doesn't work as the lead at all, and that's the real shame of it, is that as his filmography grows from this point, and we already saw a good example of this in Blazing Saddles, he works best as a secondary character, and he works best as a mentor type character and not the lead. Yogurt in Spaceballs, the governor to a certain degree in Blazing Saddles, but really Yogurt in Spaceballs, and as the rabbi in Men in Tights. Yeah. He works best when he shows up sporadically, when he, again, is more of like a mentor type character who's just there to deliver some little piece of wisdom, or to be just a buffoon. Because he's also President Scrooge in Spaceballs. He has two roles in that movie, and those both work perfectly because they're never the main character.
Right.
He's the focus of a couple scenes, but that's it. President Scrooge never meets any of the main characters. Yogurt exists only on his own little planet for his own little sequence, and that's it. We never see the guy again. I'm getting ahead of myself because Spaceballs is next week, but anyway. He just doesn't work. He doesn't work as a leading guy. Mel Brooks has a very specific comic energy. It's very much harkens back to the 20s and 30s. The Abbott and Costello type humor, just raunchier, bluer, right?
Yeah.
And that works great when you don't hear yourself feeding back on Tanner's computer. It stopped. Okay, it came back. Anyway, that works great in small doses. It does not work as a leading man. I'll say this: the other thing that I said up front, and you guys were talking about it a minute ago, and I want to pull it back to it for a second. I thought the Inquisition was the best part of the movie. I thought it was the best thing, and frankly, the whole movie should have been that. Not the Inquisition itself, but this movie, if you're going to do it the way that he did it, where it's little set pieces from different parts of history that are just comedic bits about that one element, should have just been a full musical. Just make each one a new scene, a new musical for a new era, make one set of jokes for that one thing, because he does that really well. That I thought was funny because it has its own, those songs have their own narrative impetus. What was just coming from Roger Ebert. A song like that's kind of a story song, has its own thing that's moving it along. The Inquisition, the joke is, of course, again, we're doing the thing, and they keep telling the story of it and what's going to happen with it and how it goes from beginning to end. So many of these scenes they're so disparate. They're so weirdly length. I mean, the Inquisition itself is no more than 10 minutes. And then both the Roman Empire and the French Revolution feel like they're 30 minutes apiece.
Yeah.
It's just weird. I had trouble parsing that out personally.
And they go way too long. I think that if Mel Brooks was going to be in this film, he should have strictly been King Louis and the Inquisition and had another actor play the rest of the parts. Me
personally, I always thought if he cut himself from the King Louis part and stuck to Comicus and the Roman segment, I think that was great. I think he was great there. I think when it hit too much was when it was at. I always thought when it was at the French Revolution. French Revolution was pretty bad. It was just an excuse to have just a bunch of breasts on screen and Mel Brooks and Harvey Korman to just like lust after him. I thought the Rome segment was the strongest, and it was the most fun. I thought, except for Dom DeLuise. Except for Dom DeLuise. Fucking Dom DeLuise. I thought he was awful in this. He was not funny. What? He was not funny. I didn't find him funny at all. So hard. No. So 15 and 20-year-old Tanner loves Dom DeLuise in this movie. That's actually how I got introduced to Dom DeLuise with this movie. But you're 50-year-old Tanner now. It's okay to grow out of things we thought were funny back then. A lot of us thought it was funny saying the R word back then, and it turns out it wasn't. I never did. Oh, well, me neither. It's just a guy I knew. It's fucking funny. What was funny? Wait, what is Treasure Bath? Treasure Bath. There were parts that I thought were funny of the Dom DeLuise thing, but overall, compared to his part in Blazing Saddles, which was smaller but much funnier, and the musical number was funnier in Blazing Saddles, and the fact that this film splits across 5 different time periods or 6 different time periods, you never get a character. Comicus is the closest one you get. You never get a character that you can attach yourself to and care about in the same way that you cared about Bart or the Waco Kid. When this film started, and it started with the Dawn of Man, I didn't laugh once until B. Arthur. Probably. Moses? Oh, okay. I forgot about Moses. Yeah, sorry.
Moses is a funny comic bit, but that's the shame of it. That's the one thing I had seen from this movie before I saw this movie. And then I saw that and I went, okay, but where's the rest of the movie that's like that?
I thought the part later
that's funny.
The later part with Moses was funnier when he parts the sea, but it's because he's getting robbed. I laughed out loud at that.
Keep your hands up.
Yeah. Whenever they got to Rome, there were a lot of I wish I'd written down all the little sight gags that really did make me laugh, because I don't want it to sound like this movie's just like the worst thing I've ever seen. It's clearly not. And there were a lot of things that really did make me chuckle. The 5 and 10 cent store sign. Yeah. That made me giggle. It's little stuff like that makes me giggle, you know?
You are nuts. NVTS nuts.
Not so much Dom DeLuise using homophobic slurs constantly. That Tanner almost choked on it. Yeah.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to dominate this conversation with a professionalism unseen by today's critics. So I'm going to step back a little bit, Tanner, and let you talk about this film. This is Mel Brooks' Man. You are the king of Brooks.
So this is outside of Robin Hood Men in Tights, who, when I watched it as a kid, I didn't realize I don't know who this was that made this. I just thought it was funny, and then I never heard about it again until I was older. And certain mutual friends of Shannon and I's from way back when, their family said that I need to sit down and watch this movie called History of the World. This is the first movie. So this is the first movie I went into knowing who Mel Brooks was. And like 15, 16-year-old Tanner was cracking up from the dawn of man until
the
probably the gangbang on the chessboard. Oh, no. After the gangbang on the chessboard, it kind of got silly. I didn't care for it.
Then it got
silly. Yeah, that's when it got silly.
Tanner, it's not often on this show I insult children specifically, but 15-year-old Tanner was wrong. That's all I'm going to say.
He just thought it was... Look, and then when you go back and look at it now, you start at the dawn of man, and then you realize they have Orson Welles.
Which is great.
Doing the narrating, which is fucking great. But Sid Caesar playing in the caveman at the beginning of it. It starts out with, art started, and inevitably with the coming of art comes the art critic.
Which is funny.
Pisses on it.
That was funny. Well, the pissing wasn't, because it's so lowbrow.
I was gonna say it's a funny concept, the idea of a critic, but then he does nothing with it. It's the easiest fucking joke in the world. I'm like, Mel Brooks is better than this,
right?
I
thought so.
I didn't put it in here, by the way, but I do think this is worth noting. So Orson Welles, when he was asked to do the narration for this, Mel asked him basically how much he wanted. They came up with a figure. I want to say it was like $25,000 or something he paid him for the whole thing. And then Orson Welles did the whole thing in 5 hours. He did it in one day. He sat down and did the whole deal.
He's like,
so Mel could have paid him because he paid him for basically a whole week's worth of work up front, 5 hours a day for 5 days a week. And afterward, he was like, "You son of a bitch! I could have paid you a fifth of what I did and gotten away with it." And he's like, "But he's already paid. I got out of the deal." So he just asked him, "All you got to do is tell me what you're going to spend the money on." And Orson Welles apparently said, "Fine cigars and caviar," like a very specific brand of each one, and that's what he did. He spent most of what he got on that and enjoyed it.
That's so much better than what Babe Ruth would look for, which of course was whores on hot dogs.
No, he don't say that, Diz.
This is an anthology film. So
it is. There's no continual storyline.
Right. So we should rank it segment by segment. I feel like that's how we usually do anthology films.
I didn't think it really lent itself well to that, but okay.
No, not for an overall grade.
Because it really is though.
But I think we should.
There's no continual storyline.
Right. So talking
about
a
little throwaway thing when Miracle shows up at the end,
which I saw coming a mile away, and it still made me laugh. I still got a kick out of that. All right, so let me pull up a list of the segments because I didn't know Shannon was going to say that.
I can tell you.
Do you remember? Okay, all right. Well, so the first one is the Dawn of Man.
Dawn of Man, the Old Testament.
No. We'll go piece by piece. Dawn of Man.
Dawn of Man.
Not much to say about this. It was not funny. It was terrible. The jokes, like the one guy got stabbed. Maybe I'm having a bad day, and I know I am, but it didn't make me laugh. The pissing art critic didn't make me laugh. Again, the art critic
I still chuckled at it.
It's a funny concept. I agree. Like, that is a great joke. It's like, well, if you're going to have art, you're going to have a critic. But he could have done anything other than just piss on it. I know I get they're cavemen and it's crude humor, but it just didn't work for me.
That's the point.
The masturbating Neanderthals at the beginning did nothing for me.
Hilarious to 15-year-old Tanner. Man, now I was like, I forgot about that.
And I'd never seen it, so I just sat there stone-faced watching, going like, this is Mel Brooks?
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about the Dawn of Man. I really think that is the worst segment in this film by far. It's so unfunny in every single way.
Man, the French Revolution exists.
There are at least parts of the French Revolution that made me laugh. We'll get to that in a second. Hunter, what about you? What'd you think of the Dawn of Man? Should man have just stayed in the dark?
I thought we were going to try to. I thought we were going to try to do these like in an order other than just what they're in. This wasn't. This wasn't funny. The closest it got to being funny was the joke about the first Homo sapien marriage and then the first homosexual marriage. But again, there's no joke. He just hits the guy over the head that time instead.
It's the same joke
for
as
all
before.
the funny stuff. Yes, for all the funny stuff that Mel Brooks has done, even in Blazing Saddles with gay people. Nothing. You got nothing for that other than he just hits a guy. That's the joke.
Yeah,
it's disappointing.
I expected the guy to kind of go like or something, but nothing.
Give me
it's completely
anything.
Normal.
Don't worry, that comes later.
It's indefensible. This segment of this film is god awful. Tanner, if you want to argue the point, or we can move on. I
don't need to argue it. It's there's chuckles. There's no hard laughs. There's chuckles. It's rude and crude because there's supposed to be cavemen, and I get where he was going with it, and there are chuckles, in my opinion.
Moving on to what is it? The Moses next, right?
Old Testament. Yep.
Yeah, it's incredibly short, but it is funny. It's a very funny part.
It's one of the only parts of the whole movie that made me laugh. Not to give things away here, but even though I knew it was coming, it's funny. The concept of him dropping a tablet and deciding, well, there's only 10 now, is very funny.
And I didn't know this. I'd never seen this film. I had never even heard about this joke before. It's the head under a rock, I guess. So when he dropped the tablet, I chuckled because I kind of thought, wait a minute, he's got 3 slabs, but there's only 2 slabs. So this was good. This was funny, and this was Mel Brooks to a T. This was perfectly played by him. Unfortunately, that's really it. There's not much to say about the segment. It's a kind of a one-time joke.
That's the entire thing.
But it's a funny
It's
joke.
like Nirvana. It wins by default because it was only around for a very brief period of time.
Yeah.
Like, if you're taking these by segment, this is easily the funniest segment in the whole movie because it's literally one joke and it's one of the funniest things that happens in the whole movie.
We have Rome after that, which is, other than the French Revolution, the longest part of the film. And this is a mixed bag. This, to me, this is the one that was probably made me chuckle the most, but also made me kind of wince the most because there are parts of it that are so boring. And then
Shannon, did you laugh when his dick got hard?
I did.
Wasn't that funny?
I did. I'm sorry.
Did you really? Because I didn't.
I didn't laugh out loud, but I kind of went, I know where this is going. And the sight gag of the feather going up.
And that's exactly why it wasn't funny. Like, I'm so tired of seeing jokes that are so played. An hour before I could guess what's going to happen here.
Played now.
It may be played now,
but
it wasn't played in
1981. Right.
Brother. That's part of the thing about criticizing a film. It doesn't hold up.
They didn't show hard dicks back then
at all.
It was revolutionary, like the camp scene in Blazing Saddles. I'm not telling you that I was dying laughing, but I knew what was coming, and I thought the sight gag was funny.
I'm sorry, the jig is up.
And out. B. Arthur was funny.
That was good. That was a joke straight out of Blazing Saddles.
Yeah. Yes, agreed. The joint did nothing for me. I'm sure Zach would laugh his ass off. Zach would probably be dying. The black guy rolls the joint. Who would have thought?
Well, so our introduction to Josephus. So, he's getting ready to be sent to the Colosseum for lion bait. And
but he's not a Christian.
They lions only eat Christians. I'm Jewish. You call the rabbi. Call Tim. Call Samuel Davis Jr.
And then he looks at his shorts and goes, Jewish,
He goes, Jewish, huh? He missed. I jumped and he missed.
Gregory Hines does it with such bravado that I think it works. Like, if in a lesser actor, it could have been bad, but because it was Gregory Hines and he was so committed to it, I think he made that work. The scene, even though I didn't think Dom DeLuise was funny, the scene where Mel Brooks is telling jokes in front of Dom DeLuise, I thought was funny. I thought Mel Brooks, that was a great bit from Mel Brooks because he's doing stand up. Mel Brooks did stand up. He was a comedy in the military. Or he was a comedy. He was a comic in the military.
He was a comedy.
He was a Well, it was right up his alley. So I thought that went well. But like the side character, Swiftus or whatever, was not funny. The fact that Mel Brooks is, hog tying up with a 20-year-old large-chested girl who fell in love with him because she saw him. This is another one of those times where the character falls for another character because the plot needs them to and for no other reason. And I get this is a parody. It's dumb. It doesn't matter. I know.
But this is exactly what I'm talking about. It didn't work with him as the main character.
Yes.
He does that in every movie he's in, but it's funny when he's a side character and when he's kind of villainous. So the governor, of course, he's doing that. The whole hello, boys. How'd you sleep last night? And that character is basically the same character as President Scrooge in Spaceballs. He does the same thing. He has basically concubines around him. Well, yeah, he's the head villain. He's the emperor. He fills in for that role. Plus, he's the president, which is even funnier because they're just now making fun of that role as well.
But as
that's funny then.
Plus-year-old poor comic on the streets, a Vestal
when
version.
He's the protagonist, it doesn't work. When you're supposed to be rooting for these characters, it doesn't work at all.
And I'm not saying that from the sense of like, oh, you're trying to make sense of a Mel Brooks film. I mean, there's literally time travel in this movie, basically. It's not that I'm looking for it to make sense. I just need it to be funny. Like, if you're going to have a sight gag, it needs to be gaggier. Mel Brooks as just an older guy getting the hot girls in itself is not a funny joke. Mel Brooks as the arrogant nitwit, like the governor in Blazing Saddles, who has it, then it's funny. So I don't understand what Mel Brooks was going through at this time. Maybe he was having a midlife crisis and he said, hey, I'm Mel Brooks. If I can't get a 20-year-old, I'll write it that way. But it just doesn't work. It's not funny. Hey,
do you remember the hilarious joke where he says the streets are crawling with soldiers and then there are soldiers crawling on the street? Like, that's the hackiest shit I've ever heard, man.
Okay, maybe this is how you can judge how I felt about this film. That part also, like, I smirked. It's dumb, but I smirked. And maybe that shows just how much of the rest of the film I didn't find funny. But Tanner, tell me about Rome. You like Rome. You've been to Rome.
I wish. Fuck. I do like the Rome segment. It's probably my favorite segment. Full length segment, I should say. I like Josephus. Josephus is what makes it for me. Along with Madeline Kahn.
Yes, which I needed more of her.
No, yes, no, yes.
I needed more of her. Yeah, yes, you should, yeah.
There are so many times where I want parts of that sequence. Like, there are things that I want to be funny that are so close to getting there. Like, the guy selling columns feels like it's going to be funny, and then it's just kind of exactly what you expect. He just says the types of columns, tells somebody not to touch them, and then I was like, okay. The plumbing guy piped the shit right out of your house. It got close to being funny. There was a joke there, and then I was like, but it's not funny just because you said the word shit. That's not.
I thought the worst one by far was the guy that predicts the future. You're going to go on a long journey to Rome. I am in Rome. See, do I lie? I don't get the joke. Like, there's no joke there.
It's lazy, man. There's a lot of lazy stuff there.
It's like there were parts that I just thought this isn't funny. And the problem is that it's a Mel Brooks film. It's not like, say, Gremlins. To go back to that old chestnut. Not every.
You've done it several times today.
Oh, in life. Not every part of that movie is funny, but you don't always expect it to be funny because it is a comedy, but it's also, I don't want to say grounded in reality, but it is like you said, Hunter, it wasn't funny enough to be it was more horror in a lot of ways, like who is this for type thing. But my point is, there's a big difference between going to see Gremlins and not having a joke all the time versus seeing Mel Brooks and not getting a joke all the time. You expect a Mel Brooks film to be funny, and maybe it's an unfair standard that we're holding it to, but it's not like this was Mel Brooks in 2021 past his prime. This was 1981. This is just 6-7 years after Blazing Saddles. This is before Spaceballs. So what the hell happened is the question.
He really wanted to make this movie, but he really didn't know what actually needed to be done with it. That's what happened. Again, because I'm getting ahead of myself for my review, but without giving away anything specific, Mel Brooks is at his best when he is either doing something completely original, exclusive to him, aka the producers, or, and that's coming from somebody who hasn't even seen it but knows that it's that good from everything I've read about it, etc. Or when he is parodying a genre of films by way of a specific movie. Robin Hood Men in Tights is him. So Blazing Saddles is him making fun of Westerns, and I can't think of the name of the movie, but there is a movie in which they get a sheriff they don't want, but he saves the day. It's basically the same general idea. It's that movie. Robin Hood Men in Tights is making fun of Renaissance romantical fantasy by way of Robin Hood Prince of Thieves. Yeah. Spaceballs is making fun of sci-fi by way of Star Wars. All that shit works. It doesn't work so well when it's just disparate. I don't want to say random, but it does kind of feel random that he picked the things that he did. I know that those things are important historical moments, but there's so much other shit that gets left out of there, it seems like.
You didn't mention Dracula just now when you were talking about those?
That's correct. I did not. And as I recall, part of the problem there is that he's not really making fun of those kinds of movies. By the 90s, once we get past Robin Hood, the parody, Dracula. Well, and I blame him a little bit for it. It's what leads to shit like Scary Movie, where you're not really parodying a genre. You use a genre to make fun of a bunch of pop culture shit.
Right.
That's what parody became at some point, and that did not work.
And that's what it still is for the most part, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I agree with Tanner in that this was probably the most entertaining segment.
Funniest salesman in the whole thing is in the French section. He's selling nothing. That's funny.
Got nothing.
That's a Mel Brooks joke.
Yes.
Nothing for sale. I got nothing here. That's a Mel Brooks joke, and that was funny.
And we'll get to that, but not before. Tanner, what is next? Is it the Spanish Inquisition?
The next is well, we didn't even talk about the fact that when they left Rome, they ended up in Galilee and Judea.
Yes. Yeah, I don't
remember. Last Supper.
I don't remember Da Vinci painting the Last Supper.
Yeah.
I'm not a history major. Okay?
It would be worth it if there was a funny joke in the whole thing. The closest they get to is the Jesus repeating. Oh, Jesus. Who? What? Who?
Yes.
What? Yes.
What?
What?
Someone amongst us will
Betray
me 3 times.
Judas.
And it goes the next one. Yea, I say, even amongst us now, one of you has already betrayed me this night. Judas, have you tried the wine?
Yeah,
that was funny.
There were parts that I did find funny, and I didn't know that it was John Hurt that played Jesus until I saw the credits.
I was going to say today. I was today years old when I found out that was John Hurt.
Yeah, wild that he would kind of cameo there. We got the Spanish Inquisition next. We've already talked about it, so we won't spend too much time on it. I thought the Spanish Inquisition, even though I didn't laugh during this entire segment, I thought it was the most entertaining part of the film because it was a spectacle. Whether you thought seeing Mel Brooks do the dancing routine to the Spanish Inquisition song, which the song itself, like I said, it didn't make me laugh, but I mean, not many songs do. You know, it is catchy and it's entertaining. Watching them all dance, watching the nuns, strip down to their bathing suits and jump in, and they come up on what is the Jewish candle? I forget.
Menorah.
Coming up on the menorah. That's funny. I laughed. I thought, okay, this is entertaining. Yes. I like this part. And then it was over.
Yeah. The whole movie should have just been this. Just do music. Just make a fucking musical.
Yeah.
Because he had a clear vision and a clear concept. And even if it didn't constantly make you laugh out loud, you didn't consistently see where it was going. Because it's coming up in song, he can play with rhyme more, which is very much Mel Brooks' speed. Like you said, it's catchy. It's really well shot. It's really well made. That shit was worth it.
Oh.
And I remember after it happened, I went, well, where's the rest of that movie? Because that feels like it was taken out of a different movie.
What's the name of the guy? What's Mel Brooks' character's name in that segment?
Torquemada, because you can't talk about anything.
That part, again, I saw, and he does it the first time, I was like, don't you do it. And then he did it, and I still went, okay, that's fine, I'll give it to you. You can't talk about anything. That's good.
Yes.
Tanner,
that's funny.
Any last notes to add to this before we head over to the last segment?
No.
Okay. No notes. Perfect. The last up was the French Revolution. And this is where I think I hated this segment. Not just on, I don't think it's funny, but there were only a few parts that I liked. And unfortunately, those parts I really did like. I love Harvey Korman. I don't care what he does. He's always funny. Just the way his expressions on his face, the way he moves his hands. He's such a comic genius that even though I thought the parts with him in it were dumb surrounding him, he was still bright, much like, Gregory Hines in the first segment. There's a part in that where he goes after the woman and she just kind of moves out of the way and he goes tumbling over the rail, the whatever. It's such an easy joke, but it's still funny because his physical comedy is so good. This is what it's like when you have a good actor in a role that isn't up to his standards. Is you get bright, shining moments like this, the Leahy of the film industry, if you will. Tanner, why was this segment so horny?
That's a good question. I don't know. Like you said earlier, maybe Mel was going through something. I don't honestly know.
Because holy shit. I don't know how many women Mel Brooks groped in this part or jumped on or, they're all wearing push-up bras and very little top. It's such an awkward segment. And I'm really trying to think of the redeeming part of it other than, Harvey Korman.
It was still horny, but the chess game I always thought was funny.
The chess game was funny. I did like that. When he said, king's advantage or whatever, 3 turns to 1.
3 turns to 1.
It's good to be the king.
Pawn takes queen.
And then everything after that,
Knight takes queen.
The piss boy didn't make me laugh.
Bang! Okay, the piss boy was
the term piss boy.
Yeah, it's kind of gross.
It didn't make me laugh. It's just a peanut.
Although when he says you look just like the piss boy, and he gets offended by that was pretty funny. I did laugh at that.
Yeah, then he says something like you look like the shit.
You look like a pile of shit.
Yeah.
Because he says, you look like a piss boy, and you look like a pile of shit.
Monet. Monet.
That might be legitimately the funniest part of the whole thing is the fucking name, Count de Monet. Yeah. That's funny.
Count de Money.
That's Mel Brooks shit.
Well, because it's just Blazing Saddles. It's just Hedy Lamarr.
When the girl, I told you that joke was going to come back up. When the girl comes back in, like is coming to meet the king so she can get her father pardoned, and like she runs into Count de I about did it myself. Count de Monet. And she's like, who are you? He goes, Count de Money. De Monet.
De Monet.
You did it to yourself.
as she rips her top open and gets the closest we get to nudity. I don't know if it was a design or nipple, but there was something there, and I was offended.
Were you? Sure you were.
Yes, I looked her name up immediately and searched online for any other things.
Make sure you didn't run into other times that would happen.
Just
right?
so I could warn you guys.
Oh God, who?
About it?
Where?
You know,
where was that?
There's really not much to say about it. It's a classic story. They get the guy that looks like him to pretend to be him during the revolution. He goes to get hanged. That might have been the only other thing that really made me laugh is when he's, do you want to blindfold? No. The last words, no. And then he sees the thing chopped the thing in half and he goes, whoa, that was funny. That arrogance right before you realize the amount of shit you're in. That was funny. That made me laugh. And that was pretty much it for me. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. I'm going to go over to Tanner because it makes me so mad. Stupid French. Yes. We're so poor we don't even have a language. We just have this accent.
We all sound like Marcus Chevalier.
Oh, that was also funny. Now, the woman with the tiny penis coming off her face, not funny. Let's end the show on a high note.
You leave sleeping alone, you son of a bitch.
Let's end this meeting on a high note. It just didn't work for me. That's not even a terrible joke.
That's a Mel Brooks joke.
I'm saying it just didn't land for me. And that's the thing is there is somebody in this that's watching this film, Dalton Tanner, that loves this humor. And we said that's perfectly okay. It just did not land for me. It did not land for me. And I'm an uppity college bitch, community or not. But
college bitch.
But I just didn't think it was. I think it was that funny. I will let you. We're gonna get to the reviews. If you had anything to add to this, and then I'll see if Hunter does, or we'll go to the review and talk about this film.
No, I just want to talk about, like, for me, it's always my favorite thing about Mel Brooks is some of the jokes that keeps popping up in all of his films. Count de Monet, and same as Hetty and Haley Lamar.
Yeah. What's the matter, Colonel Sanders? Chicken. That's one of my favorite fucking bits, the Spaceballs. And it's the same basic concept. It's the same idea.
I blanked and went, oh shit, what's this from?
The second guy, the secondary guy to Dark Helmet is Colonel Sanders, and it's spelled Sandurz.
Yeah.
But at one point in time there, he's talking about jumping to the like next level hyperspace. He's like, we can't do that, sir. We're not prepared. Well, what's the matter, Colonel Sanders? Chicken?
Yeah.
That's a great, stupid fucking Mel Brooks gag.
Yes.
Yeah. And
it's
then
good to be the king.
One of my favorite, good to be the kings there, but one of my favorite reoccurring Mel Brooks jokes has always been and will forever be "Walk This Way."
Yeah, I'm a sucker for a "Walk This Way" joke.
It works better in every movie I've seen it in, but this one, they didn't do enough. They didn't get into it. Like, unless you're really watching it, it doesn't really play. Like, Frankenstein is a whole situation. This is just kind of like they swish the thing up, and I'm like, man, I really wanted her to like prance up the stairs, and then they would have to do the same thing.
Which is wild. Which is yeah, but she didn't prance enough. Like it wasn't
it wasn't big enough
in a Mel Brooks film, which Mel Brooks by definition is so exaggerated. It was subtle. I don't, and sometimes Mel Brooks does subtle very well. Again, the 5 and 10 cent store might be one of the, like, that might have made me laugh in a way that like a movie hasn't made me laugh in a while. Like I chuckled out loud at that, and so did Lindsay. That, I don't know, it's a funny side gag, but normally you want that extravagant humor that Mel Brooks is so good at. See Spanish Inquisition again, Okay. I've wasted enough of everyone's time here with my rambling. Let's get to the reviews. Now, of course, as everyone loves for me to explain this all the time, and this time I'll do it in a sultry way. On this show, we follow a 5-point system inspired by the greats. 2 thumbs up means you love it. 1 thumb up means you like it. 1 up, 1 down means you're indifferent. And 2 down, Dalton, if you're listening, I'm going to get really close because I know how much you hate this. 2 thumbs down means you hate it.
So overdriven.
Dalton loves that. Famously, very few films have hit the double down list. Most recently being still Super Mario Brothers from 1993. We're waiting on the next big, terrible film. Will History of the World Part 1 be our next 2 thumbs down across the board? Hell no. Because up first with his review is Tanner.
He gets one.
I'm surprised.
Just one thumbs up. Again, it's not my favorite Mel Brooks movie, but I do love it. It had jokes that lands for me, and it's really funny. Now, there's some things that if they were doing it in a proof, what's the word I'm looking for? A style of movie we were talking about earlier, or style of film we were talking about earlier, where it's different segments.
Anthology.
Anthology.
Anthology. It was a true anthology, like they did with History of the World Part 2 on Hulu, and it bounced around to different eras, time periods throughout the movie. It'd be fine, but it was trying to go chronologically, and then he's talking to, or he's doing the stand-up comedy bit, talking about the new faction of Christians. They're so poor because they're so poor because they only have one God, and then all of a sudden turns around and he's going to work at the Last Supper with Christ. As a historian, that bugs me.
There's a lot in this
As a
film.
comedian, it bothers me.
And as a sober person, I'm fine. Are you on the phone?
Nope.
Is that a fork? What is that?
That's a corkscrew. I'm just waiting on it to happen here.
Corkscrew.
Just gonna take it out.
What is he doing? I don't understand what's happening. Is he hurting?
Stiff crowd.
Go on with the show.
Okay. I'll go. I'll go next. It's going to be one down from me. I hovered between one down and one up, one down, because again, I didn't hate the whole movie, but there was one segment I particularly didn't really like. And there were some funny moments sprinkled about it, but at the end of the day, there's just not enough funny for me to really recommend it, especially when put against the catalog of someone like Mel Brooks. If you're going to watch a Mel Brooks film, it ain't this one, Dalton. Sorry. But it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's not the worst comedy I've ever seen. It's not the worst parody film.
It's not the worst Mel Brooks movie we've ever seen.
As of right now, it is. And I've seen Dracula Dead and loving it. So let that soak in.
I have too, but admittedly, I legitimately do not remember one thing about that movie.
Look,
I saw it in theaters when it came out. I was 11 years old. I have no idea what happens in that movie.
Tater, are you going to say Dracula's the worst? I'm curious.
Yes.
I'll just defend myself really quick because it's not a good film. Wait, are we reviewing it for the show?
No.
Oh,
okay.
God, no. Not this year.
Okay.
Not this year.
It's not a great film, but I love Leslie Nielsen. I love Steven Weber. I love Amy Asbeck. There was too many people in this that I gave it a pass on that. Like, some of it was funny. And I love Dracula and I love gothic horror more than I love history. So would the history guy, who's like an actual legit like Templar now, be upset that this film, like this film for its historical stuff? Of course. Would the Irish drunkard, whose best moments were 20 years ago and no one knew about it, would he like it as much? No. Not my favorite. It's one thumb down. I didn't hate it. I hated parts of it. I hated the fact that Mel Brooks fumbled the ball so bad when everything I've seen Mel Brooks do is so funny. But I guess if you've seen all the other Mel Brooks films, are you going to be like pissed at yourself and going to go report it to a supervisor after you watch this film? No. It was just a letdown. I think it was a bigger letdown than it was bad. But for me, the sins are almost equal. So it's one thumb down for me. Hunter.
Yeah, I'm also going to land on one down. It's not bad enough to go full two down because, again, the Moses bit in and of itself is worthy of attention. I like the Inquisition part. Frankly, it was the only part that I really liked from beginning to end, other than, again, the Old Testament, because it's only the Moses bit. I still think the whole movie should have been that. I think if you just want to make a fucking funny musical about history, just do that. Because you had one segment that worked really well, and it felt completely incongruous with the rest of the movie. Most of the rest of it felt like a first draft, and I think that's probably the nicest I could be to so much of the rest of it. There were so many times that, again, I could see the joke coming a mile away, and it's not a funny joke. It's fine if I can see it coming if it's going to make me laugh, or if I don't see it coming and it doesn't quite get me the way that I thought, at least it gets me off guard. But when it's both things, it just doesn't work. It felt like a first draft. It felt like this movie was being made way too quickly, and like there were like rewrites in the moment or something. I don't know. but there was so much of it that I just didn't care for. I didn't think was very funny. I didn't laugh very often while watching this movie, and that's such a shame. I also think the anthology format, while I understand why you might want to do that to cover large portions of world history and do different things, it doesn't work as well when, number one, the segments are so randomly lengthed. Like the length of them is so weird. The two funniest bits of the whole movie to me come in at less than probably 10 minutes total if you put those two sections together. Right. Whereas we spend 30 minutes a piece, it feels like, in both Rome and France, neither of which are really worth it because it's a lot of the same one-note jokes over and over. I think this works a lot better if most of these segments are parceled out with not necessarily the exact same amount of time. We don't have to spend 10 minutes everywhere or at every time or whatever, but closer to similar lengths. And again, if you want to make a funny historical musical, just do that. Because the Inquisition part was the only part that really worked for me on all cylinders, where I thought this is part of a larger movie that's very funny and works and is worth watching the whole thing. As it is right now, this ain't it. It didn't do anything for me.
We said during Blazing Saddles last week that even though it is a coherent film with the same characters throughout it, that so much of it felt like skits.
It's sketches.
Yeah.
It's like sketches from a sketch comedy show.
Yeah, sketches. Okay. Sketches.
It's all right.
But this movie is what it would be like if Mel Brooks really did do a sketch movie, and it doesn't work as well.
No. Well, and again, part of the problem is that there are certain sections that go on way too long. Maybe if we only spent 5 to 10 minutes in ancient Rome and in revolutionary France, maybe then you could cut a lot of that chaff and it would be worth it. Yes. There would be just a funny little bit. Again, I think especially if it was done in song. I mean, Mel Brooks had a huge hit with the producers. I think if you were going to do something as a musical, this should have been it. Yeah. And this is one that would have worked well that way, where you don't have to have a cohesive story. It can be like an anthology style series of scenes cutting through history, but each one is done as a different style of musical theater song. I mean, this one, the Inquisition is very much like a Gilbert and Sullivan big, upbeat, which is funny because it's not that, right? The Inquisition is the exact opposite of that.
Right.
Yeah, right. Right. And so then that's what's funny about, Springtime for Hitler in the producers. It's the same idea here, that you take these important moments from history and you throw completely incongruous music and song pieces at them.
Yeah.
I would love to see this is off the top of my head. I'm not fucking Mel Brooks, so I'm not as funny as him. But redo The Dawn of Man, but it's done with them like trying to actually do, because it was made by 20th Century Fox, by them where they're drumming with the thing. Have them do the drum roll for the 20th Century Fox thing, that old do that, and then one guy just goes off on a jazz riff and they're like, hey, it's regimented, all right? We got a sequence here. We're trying to do a thing. Anything there would have been funnier than masturbating primates. I don't know, man. It's disappointing.
Let's get to the epilogues, because this should be interesting. The ending is a little wild. After, was it Rimbaud? How do you pronounce that? Rimbaud. After Rimbaud and her senile father return from the prison, peasants burst into the room and take King Jacques to the guillotine. When Rimbaud exclaims that only a miracle can save him, Josephus inexplicably arrives in the cart pulled by a miracle and they escape, riding off toward a mountain carved with the words, "The End." And I did find that funny, by the way, as part of what he said. That's a big ending. That's funny. And it was a big end. Yes. I love it.
Yeah.
Yes. Do more of that. A mock trailer then plays for History of the World Part 2, quote unquote, coming soon. The trailer is narrated by Brooks and shows clips of segments Hitler on Ice, a Viking funeral, and Jews in space. The end. And the funny thing, of course, would be that they did then make a History of the World Part 2 a couple of years ago as a show on Hulu. But from what I understand, it's not so much Mel Brooks as it is Nick Kroll. And I personally don't care for Nick Kroll, so...
And Mel Brooks himself said he was never going to do that. It's part of the trivia. 4 days before this movie came out, the New York Times asked him if he would do a sequel, and he said, quote, "No, maybe a part 4, never a part 2." And then, of course, in 2023, he had to go back on that. But that was always the joke, right? Is that History of the World Part 1? We've only got so much time that we can cover, stuff here. So yeah, part 4 would have been funny. Jump ahead, say we're going to skip some stuff. Some things happened. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think this would have worked better, this film. And maybe I guess this is part of my epilogues argument, is if Mel Brooks could have done another film, maybe in a couple of years after this, and he kind of kept the same format, but instead of it being random time periods, et cetera, my pitch would be for that same kind of film through history, but using the same family, the same like descendants that start in ancient times, and then you see their descendants in the Old West, and then present times, and then the future. Yeah. I think that would have worked better, because now you have a kind of, and they're always played by the same actors. So the father's always played by, I don't know, what's the guy that did the Hot Pockets jokes? Oh yeah, there you go.
Mind. That's Jim Gaffigan, but Nick Offerman works better.
Yeah. Well, hey, damn it, let me get there. I'll give it to you. But no, that's my idea. Is you do an anthology film, you can go through different time periods, but instead of it being like the really big, here's Caesar, here is Nero, stuff like that. Instead, you're seeing it from the people's point of view. Maybe they see these events happening and they're living through it. And I think that would work as a great comedy. In fact, Mel, if you're listening and you want to do the History of the World Part 3, I'll give that one to you for a small fee. Minimal, really. I just have some debts I need to pay, or Paul Newman's going to break my legs. That's a lot like History of the World Part 1. Sometimes the jokes don't land. We're going to... Tanner, what about you? What would you do for a follow-up to this?
I would just find some different time periods to make fun of, and what time periods do you pick, though?
That's your challenge. That's what I'm asking you right now. If you were doing this movie with Mel Brooks and he said, Tanner Calvert, give me 4. Let's cut it to 4, and they have equal time this time. 4 time periods to talk about. What historical events are you talking about?
Okay, I've got some ideas for historical events, and I've got an idea for one segment of what it could be. Let's go with after the French Revolution. You go to the American Civil War.
Yep, absolutely.
There's absolutely something to be done there.
Bring back Cleavon Little.
Yeah. It could be women's suffrage. He could absolutely do something funny there with people like Madeline Kahn. The Titanic.
Okay.
Right. I think he could do something there.
Yeah.
And then absolutely, he made fun of it at one point in time, but he could have absolutely done a World War II bit, and it would have been just Hitler on ice.
And he was in.
So actually, just do Hitler on ice.
And he was in World War II. So
yeah, he actually fought in World War II. So
yeah, so I mean, like, he would have a ton of experience with the military and the war. I think those would be great segments. I think you could also poke fun at, if you don't want to do the Civil War, maybe the Civil Rights Movement, or don't. Never mind.
Yeah, don't do that.
You get Timothy Chalamet to star. Oh, I'm not going to think of 4 unless Hunter did, and then I'll do it too.
I was going to suggest that Tanner use the first couple of things that I think would have worked well for this. Maybe the scope is too big. Maybe instead of History of the World, it should be History of America. And then you can do individual. So you get your Founding Fathers segment, you get your Civil War segment, you get your like involvement in World War II segment, and something else. Like, it feels like skipping the Old West is kind of sacrilege, but I mean, Blazing Saddles.
He did Blazing Saddles.
You're not going to outdo it. He's already done that.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. There's maybe like Vietnam instead. Although I feel like at this point in time, it's just a lot of war. There's got to be other things to talk about.
Maybe
the Titanic, women's suffrage,
the first telephone.
Well, but I'm saying if it's America, then you can't really do Titanic or those things. You can do the Depression, yeah.
I'm going off of like literal history of the world. I mean,
right? That's what I'm saying.
Roswell?
We're doing different things here.
Ooh,
That could be funny. Mel Brooks
That's
with
a
an
good one.
alien. Yeah, it could all work. Double H.
I think your biggest problem there is that there's not enough
Jews in outer space.
There's not enough. There's not enough truth there. Mel Brooks is at his funniest when he is directly parodying things that have definitive, like defined quantities. I can point at the real thing and go, "Here's a real thing.
Yeah.
Here's what I can do that's funny about it." So I think something like
Roswell would
this
be
is
easy,
why he didn't
though.
parody Men in Black.
No, but Roswell would be easy because something did happen, and this isn't a joke. This isn't me getting to something, but like there was a genuine controversy over the military saying it was a UFO and then saying it was a weather balloon. Even that alone, you could make a joke out of that.
That's a sketch, though. I think that's a 5-minute sketch, and that's as funny as that gets. I don't think you're going to get a full 20-minute segment of history out of that.
So any sequel that would need to be done. It's not technically speaking. They did this when they did part 2. It's all 5 to 10 minute sketches. That's all it is.
Well, then you got a whole new world as the great Jasmine and Aladdin will sing together.
That's what the whole film should be.
I'm just gonna say Mel Brooks is 98, and I hope whatever he does quickly. But then I thought, Mel Brooks is 98. He's retired. He's an old man. He's got 3 movies coming
voice
up.
Acting here and there.
He's got 3 movies coming up from voice acting. So goddamn good on you, Mel Brooks. We love you, baby. Hunter, what about you? Anything you would add to the epilogues? Or
that was my idea. I did that.
Cool.
I did it. I did the history of America.
History of America. He could also do history of other nations, and he could do blackface. He could do Asian.
Well, he could. He won't, and he shouldn't.
He could. He could have right after Blazing Saddles. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And he could have made fun. No, I can't. I am no Mel Brooks, sir. And that's going to close this chapter on the history of the world, part 1, and for this episode. But that's not it for Mel Brooks. If you are a Mel Brooks fan, and hopefully if you rewatch this film with us this week, you still are a Mel Brooks fan. Tanner, what do we have up next week on the Mel Brooks Greatest Hits?
My Funeral. Next week, what is it? Robin Hood Men in Tights next week.
Nope.
Spaceballs next week.
Spaceballs. Yeah. And I told Hunter this today. We were kind of talking, and I said, I feel like this... How Tanner might feel about this, he's going to feel about me next week too, because I never liked Spaceballs. Will it change my mind?
How many times have you seen it?
I have probably seen it 2 or 3 times, but all before I was 20.
So we'll talk.
Yeah. Oh, well, we call that a cliffhanger in the biz.
We'll come in secretly. Like I'll
tell you already for me, mine.
We didn't.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
I will tell you straight up. I have never, ever in my life been offended by anyone else not agreeing with my movie preferences. I'll tell you why I think you're wrong, but I don't care.
That's not true. I don't have any proof of it.
It's 100% true. It's 100% true. You have fucking definitive proof on this show of it. Twice now. There have been movies that I love.
Saying I have
at least 3 times.
I'm saying I have no proof that what I said was true. Is what I meant.
Of what?
That it's when I said it's not true that you've. Oh God! Now I've lost the plot in my own head.
When you explain the
what
joke
you're talking about.
Point is, yeah, you've never been upset when we disagree with the film, and I talked to Hunter earlier today about it, and I said, and I stand by this, that I think everyone has some films, or not everybody, because goddamn fucking proof there, but a lot of people have films that they love so much that they will defend to the end, and they will get upset if you like really hammer it. And to be fair, this show is not that. I think even when we're being critical on this show, it is critical. It's not this is dog shit. It's a critical look. So we're not insulting.
I think anything that you really love, that you really think is worth that level of defense, you know what's wrong with it. I think anybody who holds that strongly an opinion understands where an opposition is coming from, even if they don't agree with them. So when people tell me they don't like Ghostbusters because they don't get it, well, that's a shame. And maybe you should rewatch it and maybe we could talk about it. But when they tell me they don't like Ghostbusters because it feels like a capitalist fantasy, yeah, I get it. I get where you're coming from, and I completely understand. Or like it's a full Reaganomics, defense of his presidency, even if they didn't mean it to be. I get it. Upstart small businessmen getting held down by the government. Like, I understand. Man, I get where you're coming from. I don't like that. That's why you don't like it, but I get it.
I've seen Ghostbusters a million times, and I never put those two things together till you just said it.
Yeah. That's a common criticism of it nowadays.
I could hear the glass shattering.
Yeah, a very common criticism of Ghostbusters nowadays is that people don't like it because it feels like it is in defense of big government, or is in defense of going against the government, basically.
People need to shut the fuck up. Is what they need to do, because I get tired of the arguments. You can't have a movie about good cops because the police system's terrible. You can't have a movie about this because a certain segment of this is terrible. That is such an unfair thing to say. You can make cop films. You can make these films. Like, it's
sure. But you do also have to be understanding of how they're going to be received.
Yeah, obviously. But the idea that, like, well, I don't like Ghostbusters because it is a capitalist fantasy. Man, it's 4 dudes who bust ghosts, and sure, but like, this is not the show for this. I'm going to sit here and rant for 20 more minutes. Let's just stop it there.
It's the show. It's the only show for this.
No, because we do reviews.
Oh, I guess you could do it on 80.
We do reviews of films here. We don't go off and rants about the entire fucking industry.
I'm going to say it up front. I haven't seen Spaceballs in a few years. It was my introduction to Mel Brooks. I've joked before and told you guys before. I saw it before I saw Star Wars, so I saw Star Wars afterward and was like, oh shit, that's what all that is. I loved that movie Alien, when I was a kid.
By the way,
I don't know how I don't know how I will feel about it now. We'll see. But I have a feeling that even if it's just personal preference or a nostalgia for it, that it's not going to change my opinion much. We'll see.
We shall see. And that's also not it for this week. We actually have After Dark on tomorrow. We'll figure out some fun historical top 5 for tomorrow. Tanner, you missed last week's, unfortunately, where we talked about I don't really remember what we talked about, so doesn't matter. How long has it been?
Well, historical, I'm all over.
How long has it been?
Apologize for
last night. I had the LeSabres, so,
We didn't have a plays last night because one of our members couldn't make it, unfortunately, but we will be back with next week, and Hunter keeps telling us all that we are close to the end.
You are close to the end of season 2. There are 3 seasons of this game, so we're closing in on the end of Act 2. There's a 3rd act on the way in the future, but yeah, by the end of May, we will have wrapped up Act 2 of Deadlands: The Horror at Headstone Hill. They haven't decided exactly what we're doing in between. I'll just full disclosure, we are probably going to take some time off in June, because most of us are going to be kind of all over the place in June on that show specifically, I should say. But then we will be back later in the summer into July with something. Probably not Deadlands season 3. We usually wait and do something else in between. So we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, especially because we have Halloween right after that. Not to get too far ahead, Tanner, but Halloween is creeping up, and
I'm writing notes.
And we would hate to start a horror. We'd hate to start season 3 when we got a horror one right around the corner. Will we continue the Perryville, horrors of Perryville? Probably not. I'll tell you why. But anyway, we just can't afford it.
Maybe those get a reboot.
That would be kind of interesting.
Start fresh with that one.
But that's up next. Thank you guys for tuning in. The balcony is closed. We'll see you guys
over the budget
next week for Spaceballs. May the Schwartz be with you. Hunter, take us out.
Tanner and other fellow members of the Roman Senate, hear me. Shall we continue to build palace after palace for the rich, or shall we aspire to a more noble purpose and build decent housing for the poor? How does the Tanner vote?
Fuck the poor.